tough time. I remember one year, and they're both here today. My mother, right there, raise your hand, Mom, and my Aunt Dixie, raise your hand, Aunt Dixie. Every year when I was growing up, we had a big family dinner, and the family got so large that we couldn't fit in my grandmother's house anymore, which is where I live now. So we started, going to a church hall, and because we were serving like 60 people. One year there were almost 70 people there, so it was a big family thing. And so one year, Mom and Aunt Dixie were responsible for getting things ready, and they went the night before, and they thought, hey, wouldn't it be a great idea if we just put this turkey in a roaster and let it roast all night while we're not here, and just let it go. Well, they did that, and they got to church the next morning, and the whole church was filled with this fog. When you burn something, because the turkey had burned. So it's stressful sometimes to get your Thanksgiving dinner ready, right? You're like, I'm supposed to be giving thanks, and I just, And I thought about it this week, and it's kind of amazing that we even get Thanksgiving dinner on the table. You think about how many things have to get all ready and be ready all at that one time, right? Because I don't know what your menus are like, but I thought about what our menu is going to be this year alone. And this is what we do, because we were raised, in a family where, my grandmother just went crazy cooking things. And so we have the turkey, and just sometimes just getting the turkey ready is just enough, right? But you have the turkey, and depending where you're from, it's either stuffing or dressing, right, Judy? Because I was talking to Judy last week about the meal she's going to make at the high rise, and she was saying she's making all this stuff for her people there too. So you have turkey is stuffing or dressing, you got mashed potatoes, you got the gravy, you better have cranberry sauce or I'm leaving, right? At our place, we'll be having coleslaw, we will have sweet potatoes, you got to have some vegetables, some sort, some people make green bean casserole. I hope at our house we just have plain simple corn, because that just seems like Thanksgiving to me. But we got that, and then we, at our house we usually have a pickle tray that's there on the table, right? With pickles and olives and some pickled beets and some good stuff there. And this year we're going to have a bread tray, which is something that we used to do growing up. My one aunt would bring all sorts of different breads. So this year we'll have pumpkin bread and chocolate banana bread and maybe some zucchini bread there on the table. And then you get all that, and there's, did I say coleslaw? We got coleslaw, and then of course you have to have dessert, right? And we usually have pumpkin pie. We'll have at least pumpkin pie this year. Maybe something else will be there. And there's going to be apple pie. So, hey, yeah, great. And it's just amazing. It just all gets on the table at the same time, right? Because, it can be so stressful getting it all ready to go, right? And sometimes that stress from preparing Thanksgiving dinner, it's just a carryover to the stress you've just been feeling in life. Maybe life's been hitting you with it. Maybe some of you this year, you're feeling like, oh yes, I know. And Thanksgiving's coming. And, because maybe in your life, you've got different things going on. Maybe you're having problems with one of your children or your spouse or your parents, and they're going to be at Thanksgiving dinner. Or you got problems at work, problems with coworkers, problems because you don't have work. Maybe you have money problems, right? And Thanksgiving dinner is expensive. Maybe you have personal, emotional problems or interpersonal issues going on with someone you know and love. Or maybe you've been really sick. Maybe someone you know and love has been really sick. So whatever it is, fill in the blank. In some way, it feels like life has been hitting you over the head with a baseball bat. And then you come to church, and some well-meaning pastor says, hey, it's Thanksgiving, and then he slaps this up on the screen. Give thanks in all circumstances. And you're like, give thanks? Give thanks. I got a whole bunch of circumstances I'm not thankful for, and now you're just putting something else on. Now I have to take time to give thanks. Something more in my already crowded schedule, right? And I think this is one of the reasons why we try to bypass sometimes Thanksgiving in our society. Why we're so eager to go from Halloween to Christmas. Sandy, show us. Does this look familiar to anybody? Some of you might have seen this year. And when the clock strikes midnight, Halloween will end, then bam, Christmas carols everywhere. Right? Isn't that what it's like? And I was even talking to some of you last week, multiple people, that we have no place for Thanksgiving in our society anymore. We go from Halloween and it's just all about Christmas. I'm not joking. I did a Thanksgiving lesson with the youth Thursday night, because Thursday was the last time I'll be with them before Thanksgiving. And I started out and I said we're going to talk about Thanksgiving, and I had more than one of them say to me, excuse me, "Oh, is it Thanksgiving? I didn't even know it was that time of year." One of them said, "I didn't even know that Thanksgiving was this month." We try to, bypass Thanksgiving, right? Or we try to make Thanksgiving into something it's not. I had a friend, a great Christian lady when I was in college, who always referred to it as Turkey Day. It's like Happy Turkey Day, and she was very joyful about it. But it's like, it's not Turkey Day, it's Thanksgiving, it's a day for giving thanks. Or, some people renamed it. It's not Thanksgiving anymore. Maybe, did you hear about this? It's Friendsgiving. We've renamed it. Or it's just a day. It's not about giving thanks. It's just a day you spend with family. It's a day you get together and watch football or play football for some people. And we try to make it not about giving thanks. Because, well, if we think about it, we realize, maybe we're not so great at giving thanks. And then as we look at our lives, about what are we thankful for, we start to see maybe a lot of things that we're not thankful for, and we don't like to face that down. All that stress in life is out there. So we just kind of bypass it. Or we get something that eclipses all that. Right? Anyone here remember back at the end of September, the super blood moon eclipse? Anyone? It was all over the media. It was reported. And it was one of those things. It was night. For some reason, I was over at my parents' house, and we live in the same driveway there. So I left, and it was nighttime then. And I was walking across the driveway, and I was just like amazed because I looked behind me, and I was actually able to see my shadow at night from the light of the moon. Like, I could have read a book out there. I mean, you looked up, it was so big and vibrant and beautiful. And I was like, wow. So I went into the house, and I reminded everyone, hey, it's the blood moon eclipse tonight. We can see the eclipse they've been talking about all week. Let's go do it. So we all went outside. It was a pretty nice, mild night. So we got a blanket. We were all out there, all 6 of us out there on this blanket sitting, watching the moon, big and bright and beautiful. And we're waiting, because during an eclipse, what happens? A shadow passes over the moon. It starts, and it covers the whole thing, and then it eventually goes away the other side. Well, we got to the point where that shadow was just starting to come over that moon, and who here remembers what happened? Clouds. Oh, not just thin, wispy clouds, but big, thick clouds. So you couldn't even see where the moon was. This big, bright moon just covered completely with clouds. And we're like, well, darn, we missed that. The eclipse was actually eclipsed by clouds, which is kind of funny. But it's like, okay, but we weren't necessarily upset to see these heavy clouds because it had been a dry summer. We were still worried about our spring water. Was it going to hold up? So we thought maybe there would be some rain in some of these clouds. So the clouds themselves, they were all right. They were good, but they eclipsed something else that was also good that we wanted to watch the eclipse. And that's kind of what Christmas is to Thanksgiving, right? Christmas is a good thing, but it eclipses Thanksgiving. So much so that you have stores now saying, as a marketing ploy, we're not going to open on Thanksgiving. 1 or 2 did this because they say we believe there should be a time set aside for giving thanks. But then other stores started seeing, hey, these stores are getting lots of free marketing from this. So other stores started saying, we're going to be closed on Thanksgiving too. Not because they want to give thanks, but because they want the free publicity. And so even then, Thanksgiving isn't about Thanksgiving, and it's overshadowed and eclipsed by something. But Christmas, a great thing that often eclipses Thanksgiving. And I think one of the mistakes we make that allows or even causes this to happen is the fact that we take this idea of giving thanks and we set it aside as its own separate thing. Oh, this is what we do now, right? This is just another thing I have to do on my already busy list of things to do. Now I have to make time this time of year to stop and give thanks. And there's kind of this misunderstanding out there that at Thanksgiving you come before God and you say, God, I don't want to ask you for anything today. I just want to give thanks. And if you can't do that, then you got it wrong. because, hey, that's what Thanksgiving is, right? But the reality is, the messiness of life doesn't go away just because it's Thanksgiving time. All that stuff that's stressing you out or it's coming against you, it's still there. And it can leave you, at Thanksgiving, so often it's just like this idea that I have to just be thankful, but all I want to do is come before God and beg him to help me get through these things, right? Help me with this. I must be doing this wrong, so let's just bypass it. Let's just eclipse it. But did you know? Asking God for his supply, the big word for that is supplication. Asking God to supply your needs and giving thanks, they were never supposed to be separated. Never. They were always supposed to be hand in hand. Two things of the same time. So it's like, hey, if you're asking God for stuff, you should be giving thanks. So we shouldn't need a special day. That shouldn't be the only day we're giving thanks. It shouldn't be like that. Let me take you through some scriptures to show you what I mean. Sandy, show us Jesus in Matthew chapter 6. Says, your Father knows what you need before you ask him. Now, he's talking about our Father in heaven. He's talking about God. He says, God knows what you need before you ask him. There's this acknowledgement from Jesus. Number one, there are things in life that you need. Sometimes we think we need some things and they're wants, but there's some things you need. But there's this expectation from Jesus that you're going to ask God about them. See, sometimes we think, I can't ask God about that, or I can't just be selfish and always be asking God for things. But Jesus kind of says, number one, he knows you need it. He knows there are things in your life beyond you to handle by yourself, and he knows you need his help, and he expects that you ask him. And Sandy, show us what James goes to say then in chapter 4. James says, but you do not have because you do not ask God. Again, this expectation. You need something, but you don't have it because you're not asking God. God, sometimes we think God doesn't want us to always come asking him for things. God wants us to come and ask him things. The bigger the ask, the better, because it doesn't take very much faith to ask God for small things. And often when you ask him for small things and he answers that prayer, well, you don't even realize it's just so small. You don't even realize it's God answering a prayer, so the glory is not that great. But when you ask him for big things that take big faith, God says yes. And out of his abundance, he answers that prayer, and he is glorified all the more. But James says, you don't see it, you're not getting it because you're not asking God. And finally, this is how this all relates to Thanksgiving. We get this here from Philippians. Do I not have it from Philippians? There we go. Yeah, all right, from Philippians chapter 4. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. You see, he says, don't be anxious about anything. Do you know, wouldn't it be great if we could come to Thanksgiving Day and not be anxious about anything? How do we do that? Let your requests be known to God in everything. See, once more, God's saying, give me everything. Ask me everything. Ask me for everything. Ask me to supply all your needs. That's supplication. But it says, what are the words in blue there that I kind of define there for us? Supplication with thanksgiving. You see, it's not unusual for us maybe every day of our lives to come to God and ask him for something. When was the last time, though, you went to God and asked him for something, and in that very prayer, before you were even done with that prayer, before God even really had time to act, to really start answering that prayer, or for you to start seeing how God was answering that prayer, you say, yes, God, thank you. And we thank him for answering a prayer that he hasn't even answered yet. When was the last time we did that? When was the last time we thanked God for answering prayers we know he's going to answer because, hey, he's heard it, and he is going to supply that out of his riches and glory. And see, and this is how it works. We're always asking God for something, and God expects and wants us to ask him for something. How do we become people of thanks? While we're asking, we are thanking God. Wow, so we don't need a separate time set aside for giving thanks, because it's just part of our everyday life, because we're thanking God even as we ask him to meet all our needs. So maybe instead of giving thanks being something more to add to our spiritual lives, what's something we're doing every day? And instead of separating Thanksgiving from the harsh realities of life, maybe instead giving thanks becomes a soothing balm as we undergo those harsh realities. Instead of asking and giving thanks being just two things at different end of a spectrum, maybe they come together in the middle. Instead of giving thanks being eclipsed by so many other things in life, giving thanks starts to eclipse all those other difficult things. And so Thanksgiving isn't a day, it's not a holiday, it's not a season, it's not a stress. It's just a way of life every day. So I began thinking this week, how do we learn to put this in practice, this idea of asking God with thanksgiving? Giving thanks every day as we ask God for things. And I came up with this idea that instead of the hype of Christmas eclipsing Thanksgiving, what if Thanksgiving eclipsed the hype of Christmas? Not the true meaning of Christmas, but all the hype around. The hype, it's good stuff, right? It's fun stuff. We like it, or we wouldn't do it, right? We love all the stuff that goes with Christmas. But what if Thanksgiving was a part of that? Instead of all that fun stuff, eclipsing giving thanks. And so how do we get there? And I came up with this, what I'm calling the Great Thanksgiving Eclipse. And you've all got this in your bulletin. So everyone take that out and look at it, will you please? And this is the idea behind this. Every day from now until Christmas, get this list out and write something new, something different that you are thankful for every day until Christmas. And doing this, we will get into a discipline of giving thanks. Not just at Thanksgiving time, being stressed out because we have to give thanks, but giving thanks every day. Wouldn't it be great if we come to the manger at Christmas time and it's just one more awesome thing God has done for us that we are thankful for. And we are in that place, that heart attitude of giving thanks. Wouldn't that be wonderful? So I want you to take these and then I want you to fill them out. Now, some of us, you know how we are, right? We're going to get to December 23rd, and what? This is going to be blank, right? We're like, I need to catch up, and you're going to be writing things to catch up, and that's one way to do it. But if you actually take time each day to fill in one thing you're thankful for, and number one, it'll take the stress off, and number two, it'll get you at a place where you are having a discipline of giving thanks. And then December 27th, which is a Sunday, we will come here Sunday morning, bring your lists, and we will talk about that morning what we are thankful. So we come to Christmas worship as thankful people, knowing that Christmas and all the hype around it did not eclipse a heart of thankfulness. But our heart of thankfulness wrapped itself around all that other stuff that comes with the Christmas season. I am going to view this great Thanksgiving eclipse. I'm asking you to come on this journey with me. Let's pray.